All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with my favorite co-hosts, Laura Eisenhower and Stewart Swerdlow, who is a Montauk Project survivor and has written countless books about this stuff to the point that much of the Stranger Things that we've seen on television, the episodes of Stranger Things, the series was taken from his books. I mean, this guy has written amazing books, and he's a great author, and he is a survivor, and I mean survivor. Laura Eisenhower is with me once again. I can't wait to do this. I've been excited about this one for a while. I just got back from the Tim Cast um, uh, podcast, and I just flew in. I was exhausted, but I was like looking forward to this podcast specifically because this is right up my alley. And Laura and I used to host these shows together specifically about these subjects. But first, folks, get your red light, folks. My red light. What if you could fire up your heart and supercharge circulation in just 15 minutes without drugs or surgery? It's possible. That's exactly what cutting edge research shows red light therapy can do. I'm sure you know a lot better technology that can be used for stuff like this. But anyway, it charges your heart's mitochondria, helping it beat stronger, last longer, and fight inflammation. In one study, mice with heart failure bounced back fast. Their heart shrank to a healthy size and function soared. No pills, no side effects, just pure light power. Red Life delivers the exact therapeutic wavelengths used in those studies so you can energize your heart naturally. More stamina, better blood flow, a heart built to last right at home. To claim this breakthrough yourself, go to myredlight.com and use the code Nino, baby. Not Nino, baby, but just Nino. Nino. And get 10% off your red light device. All right, folks, I'm excited about this one. And without further ado, Laura, please bring in our guest.
Hey, Stewart.
Hi.
Hey, oh my gosh, Stewart Swerdlow. You've been such a great friend for so many years. We did an incredible trip to Istanbul, which we'll talk about later in the interview, but I want to read your bio so everybody knows a little bit more about you. He is the author of 50 books and counting. Stewart Swerdlow's great uncle, Yakov Sverdlov, was the first president of the Soviet Union. To ensure that his family's loyalties stayed with the US government, he was recruited as a child for specific government mind control experiments, including 13 years at the infamous Montauk Project, an offshoot of the Philadelphia experiment, which enhanced his natural abilities. Today, his mission is to help others heal themselves in a positive way, thus avoiding the negativity he experienced. He's a gifted hyperspace intuitive. He has the ability to see auric fields and personal archetypes, as well as read DNA sequences and mind patterns. He is a doctor of alternative healing. He's a naturopath and deprogramming with a medical license in indigenous medicine. So happy to have you here with us today. Good to be with you, David.
Yeah, I am just thrown back by this. This is unbelievable. So let's go back to your family, your bloodline, basically. Is that why you were recruited into Montauk in the first place? Is because of your famous uncle or great
Yeah,
uncle? Was
my
it your
great.
great uncle?
Yes, absolutely. Uh, my family, my grandmother was a Soviet spy during World War II, and I do have to tell people that we have to remember in World War II, United States and the Soviet Union were on the same side, and so she was actually sent to Germany by the Soviet Union to sabotage and to blackmail the German officers, which she did. And the story is at the end of the war, the Soviet Union did not have money to pay her for her services. So they sent her to Antwerp, Belgium, to a Russian jeweler there, and they told her to pick any ring she wanted. So she picked a gigantic 3.5 carat Marquis diamond. And then she immigrated to the United States, where she met my mother in Miami. And she told my mother, if you marry my son, I'll give you this ring. So that's what my mother did. And so,
Wow, that's what it took?
well, everybody has a price, you know?
Yeah, I guess. Wow. That's like the standard American woman now.
Yeah, well, my grandmother was very ahead of her time. My mother was not so much. But my grandfather, Mikhail Sverdlov, who was the brother of Yakov, he was first sent to England uh, to start the Communist Party there. They were communists. And when he was successful in Liverpool and so on, then they sent him to the United States to start the Communist Party here in the United States. So it's a kind of a sordid family background. My great uncle Yakov in the Soviet Union, unfortunately, he was a bit of a dictator. He killed 2 million people who were supposedly against his agenda. And I have paid the price for that my whole life. And that is why I was taken into Montauk Project in 1970. But interestingly, I taught a lot of classes in Russia. And in one case, um, they asked me to go to the, because my great uncle ordered the assassination of the Tsar Romanov in Yekaterinburg. And actually, after he was assassinated, they renamed the city of Yekaterinburg to Sverdlovsk, means the city of Swerdlow. And the oblast, the province, also is now still called Sverdlovsk. And so when I was in St. Petersburg, the KGB came and they said to me that I have to go to the cathedral in St. Petersburg where the tombs of the Romanov family are located, and I have to apologize to the Romanov family in the cathedral, which I did. And then when I was teaching my classes in Yekaterinburg and Sverdlovsk, I had Russian soldiers, police officers, all kinds of people in my class, and I apologized to the people of Russia on behalf of my family for all the things that had happened. And there was a great silence. And so I said, "Did you hear what I said to you?" And this one woman raised her hand and she said, "Yeah," she said, "Oh, that was then." She says, "We would like you to run for president now." I
Wow.
thought, I don't think Mr. Putin would appreciate that very much.
Wow. All right. So that's pretty incredible. So there's your lineage there. That's a stellar pedigree and wow, a lot of history. So let me ask you this. So at what age, who recruited you and at what age did you get recruited into Montauk and what is Montauk for my audience?
Okay. Montauk, first of all, I was 13 years old.
That's pretty older for them to be recruiting. I thought they recruited kids at the ages of, I guess all ages, but mainly 5, 6 years old. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
Well, they took infants. I mean, they had people who were creating fetuses for them as well. It was quite a comprehensive experiment back then. And it was an outgrowth of the Cold War because they found out, because of the Germans in World War II, that the best way for a smaller, relatively small group of people, let's say in the hundreds of thousands, to control billions of people on the earth. You can't do it with weapons. You can't do it with war. You have to do it through mind control and programming. And that's what the Germans practiced during World War II in the concentration camps. And those scientists, like Werner von Braun and others, were brought to North America under Project Paperclip after the war, and they started to develop mind control and programming.
So so Montauk is a product of Project Paperclip.
Well, yes, I will say it was an outgrowth of it. It actually began in Canada at McGill University after the war, when Professor Ewan Cameron from Scotland was given Nazi documents and paperwork uh, outlining the programming experiments and what they did, and he brought it to his clinics in Montreal and he created the experiments there, which were so successful that in the late 1940s, the American government invited him to come to the US and continue the experiments here. And then the rest is all history. There was Project Bluebird, there was all kinds of projects that began in the late 1940s, Project Monarch Project, and so on, which led eventually to Montauk Project in 1970.
So I have a hard time deciphering conspiracy from fact because there's so many projects that you hear about, right? And there's so many people coming out saying they are time travelers. They were taken as a kid for psychic warfare and things like that. What were you used for as a child? Why did they recruit you?
First of all, I was recruited because of my genetics and my ancestry. I should backtrack a little bit. And I'm just going to tell you, I was actually created in the Soviet Union and I was implanted into my mother's womb. And when she was going into labor, the doctor said it was impossible for her to have become pregnant because she had no birth canal. She had a sealed uterus.
So you were like IVF before IVF.
Well, you can say that. But remember that the science that they have is 50 or 60 years ahead of what they have to current people. So, like, for example, what we have now, the government has 100 years, 200 years ahead of really what we have now, if not more. And so my mother was taken to a hospital that was under construction. That was not open to the public, and there was no heat, she told me. And then they had to bring in a specialist from somewhere else to perform surgery on her to pull me out of her womb. And this
So like
is,
a cesarean section, that's what that would be called today.
it was not that because they operated through her uterine, her vaginal area.
Okay.
They didn't open the abdominal wall. And so this was in medical books. And so I was born and I was under monitoring my whole life. And so was my father. My father was interrogated by the American military in the 1950s because they wanted to know his loyalty. And he was actually kept in a base underneath the mountains near El Paso, Texas. I think that's where you are located.
I've
Um,
heard there's some big bases here, man, and you just gave me the chills.
yeah, my father was there underground.
Probably next to Holloman, White Sands, the whole area.
Well, yeah, but there's another base outside of El Paso, and I can't remember the name of it right now. You know the name of it probably. And I was there a few
Fort
years.
Bliss, Fort Bliss.
Bliss, that's correct. Fort Bliss. He was in Fort Bliss. And so after he left there, we were followed. So in my childhood, we were followed the whole time. Our mail was opened, our phones were tapped, we were under investigation 24/7. So my whole life, I never knew anything what people would consider freedom. I was always, I always knew, watch what you say on the phone. Be careful when you open the mail. Be careful who you speak to. My whole life was like that. And
So you
still,
were monitored since a child. You were born to be monitored and used for experimentation.
that is correct. That is correct. And I would recommend if people are interested to read my book, Montauk Alien Connection, and also Blue Blood, True Blood, which is the sequel to that, which describes my, let's say, uncomfortable existence in the United States, and how I was under investigation, held at gunpoint, put in a prison camp, all kinds of things that happened to me in the United States. And so that's why they questioned loyalty. And I remember at one point being taken into an office with military people, and I was told, uh, if the United States is invaded, who would you support? Now, what am I going to answer? Of course, I support the United States. I'm not going to be, stupid and say anything else. And of course, it was a different political system in those days than it is now. I'm
But
very grateful.
it's always been compromised.
Yes, I'm very grateful for what we have at this moment. And so that's how my life was, David, for till now, really. I have been threatened with deportation. I have been told they can make people disappear if I don't do what you say. All these things have actually happened to me.
What,
Laura,
yeah, what's the connection with like time travel and manipulation of timelines
Uh-huh.
in Montauk?
Yeah, so Montauk was about a lot of things. Initially, it was about mind control and programming. They went into then weather manipulation, esoteric weaponry, and then because the American government had been given technology by those who are not from here, they wanted to investigate this technology. And so the beings who come from the area called Sirius A, there's a star system. There's a Sirius A, B, and C, and these were from Sirius A. They gave the American government what they said was a time and space manipulation devices. But in order to use them, you needed to know coordinates. You can't just blast someone out there without knowing where they're going. And so these beings gave coordinates, which we found out were mostly false, so that people were sent and wound up inside of a rock, under an ocean, in deep space. They didn't come back.
Other dimensions, other dimensions entirely.
Like the Philadelphia experiment with the being in the boat, like lodged in the boat, right?
Yeah, that was 1943. That was 1943. That was Tesla. That was a Tesla experiment. And he also had connections to aliens. And so he was given technology of a cloaking device that the Americans wanted to use to make their ships and aircraft invisible to the Germans. And they did this in the Philadelphia Naval Yard in 1943, and they used the ship called the USS Eldridge. And unfortunately, when they turned on the equipment, the ship disappeared, but it went into, let's say, another time space where human beings are not designed to live in that environment.
Hyperspace type of a.
Yes, hyperspace, correct. And so the ship itself, the steel walls, the metal became energetic so that you could walk through them. You would you slip through the floor, and then they turned off the equipment. The ship became solid again, and many of the soldiers were embedded in the walls and floors because there was no warning. You understand?
And so Al Bielek and I forgot the Cameron Duncan were the ones that jumped off the ship, right?
Correct.
And when they did that, they survived. And
They landed in Montauk in 1983. There was a time loop, and that time loop still exists between 1943 and 1983, and it actually goes every 40 years, loops and loops and loops. And the Montauk Day, that was August 12th. Montauk Day is August 12th. It passed a couple weeks ago. And so they wound up in Montauk in 1983. And that's when the loop of time began. And that's what actually became the encouragement to create CERN in Switzerland, because the Hadron Collider is not for energy, it's for interdimensional connection. And that's become a very big problem.
is it to summon? Would you call it demonic? Would you call it
Um,
to
yeah.
summon entities from other dimensions, which maybe we would call hell? Maybe I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. When you work with such equipment, you need to know where you are in point A and where you're going in point B. And if you don't know that, you can wind up anywhere and allow anything to come in. And that's exactly what happened. And so CERN has become a very big disaster. And that's why they're always turning it off and it's being sabotaged. But recently, and I would say in the last 6 months, they've turned it on to a point where they have allowed, well, I can't say they allowed, I don't think they knew these creatures were coming in. And they're so horrendous, they cannot send them back. And this is causing havoc underneath Geneva.
What? So when you were recruited as a child, you had no choice in this. Obviously, it's not like they said, "Hey, we want to use you for these special operations. You're the guy."
I guess recruitment is the wrong word. It was more like you're
Kidnap.
coming with us.
What was it?
You're just coming. You're part of it. No
Oh,
choice.
can you give us some of the experiences from your earliest memories of what it was like? Did you get taken down underground into tunnels, into a Levitron train? Can you give us those experiences?
Yes. First, let me describe Montauk Point. It was built in the late 1700s by George Washington as a way to monitor British ships coming to our coast that would invade the United States for breaking away from Britain. And over the decades and centuries, it was expanded underneath Montauk. Uh, And as they dug down, they found pyramids that had been built from the time of Atlantis with technology inside of it that they were able to access. And these pyramids, actually, you could see them above the sand on the beach up until 1938. And there are pictures of people standing next to the tops of these pyramids. But there was a hurricane, a very huge hurricane in 1938 that completely destroyed the east end of Long Island and buried those pyramids for good. You could still dig down, but you're not allowed to do that.
So these pyramids I've heard are all over the planet, especially in Antarctica, correct? I mean, this technology is everywhere, all over the planet, right? What we see in Giza is just the tip of what I understand, much more that goes underground, almost like an obelisk, right? Obelisk.
Well, what you see above is the same below, so it's actually an octahedron. You only see the top, but underneath is the reverse. So it's actually an octahedron, and the pyramids are actually a time travel and wormhole device.
That you could still use today?
Yes, except that the cap and the covering of the pyramids have disintegrated. Um, Now that was going to be replaced. I believe it was in 1998 or so, if I'm not mistaken, 1999. You might recall Egypt Air leaving JFK and then crashing into the ocean. But it actually started in Los Angeles and it was delayed and then sent to JFK. And the reason is they had created and manufactured a new cap for the pyramid that was on board the aircraft, and it was being sent to Egypt to put it on there, and it was destroyed after they took off from JFK.
Wow. So you get taken into Montauk. What was it like? Can you give us your experience? Like when you first showed up, do you have those memories still, or were they wiped from you?
I wish they would be wiped, but I still have them, yes. And that was my problem, David, is that in the mind control experiments, you were supposed to not remember what happened to you. They put a mask memory over everything. But because of the way I was created in the Soviet Union, I guess they knew I I always remembered everything. They could not wipe my memory. So that made me not only an anomaly, but a problem. And so they did more experiments on me, more mind control on me, more, unfortunately, torturing and things like this. And so I was underground. There were tunnel systems underground so deep that salt water, would infiltrate on the walls. You could touch the walls and they were wet from the salt water. And you would sometimes be locked in a cement room with with walls, those rock walls on the outside of it. I once tried to escape and I ran through the hallways and I hid under I guess you'd call it a gurney with a white cloth over it. But I was discovered and, of course, punished for that.
What was the Montauk chair? Can you explain the chair and what kind of ETs were down there with you?
So the Montauk chair, again, was a product of the Sirius A technology. And I never sat on it, but Duncan Cameron was the main person who was on there. And it kind of looked like a large dental chair with a head rest that wrapped around your head with electrodes on it. And at the time, it was connected to a Cray computer, which in those days was the most extensive computer that you could get built on the earth. And so what happened is this device would pick up the thoughts of the person on the chair, go through a step-up transformer type of thing so that it would become, your thoughts would then manifest physically. And so in that way, they were able to create wormholes and vortices. And there's a difference between a vortex and a wormhole. A wormhole is a shortcut between point A and point B within the same physical reality. A vortex is a connection between two different realities. So people mixed up those words, but they're really two different things. And so the Montauk chair was about creating those things so that we could find out the true coordinates of places in time and space because we knew that these aliens had given the wrong ones on purpose.
But there's aliens down there with you, though, right?
Mostly reptilian. There was reptilian. There were some very few serious beings, and there were from time to time. There were Greys, there were Nordics, there were all different kinds that were there. People don't realize there are huge amounts of different species out there. You know, our galaxy has trillions of stars. So if even 1/10 of a percent had life, it's unimaginable amount of civilizations, and then times that by infinite universes. That
So, so the Montauk chair was able to take your thoughts. That just shows how powerful thoughts really are.
yes,
You were able to think something and manifest it into this reality and create it as matter.
anything, matter,
Energy, so
and
the energy of your thought would create matter.
whatever you could think of would be manifested.
How did it use a technology to do this? Or is it just a certain type of person that was able to do this on their own? How did the chair work?
The chair would had these devices on either side of the head and in the back of the head that would pick up thoughts because your thoughts are waves. They're energetic waves that go outside of your body into all of creation. You're connected to everything that exists. And so these devices would pick up the thoughts, download them, and amplify them, and then bring down the frequency levels so that it would become physical.
That's incredible. So were you able to create organic material or was it just in other words, were you able to create other living organisms with thoughts? Or was it just like just matter, just like a table or a chair or a thing?
All the above they were able to do. But here's the issue. You had to know what you were doing because you didn't know if you were creating this through the mental or brain waves or if you were connecting to another reality where those things existed and bringing those in. That was the big question of the day. And that is what ultimately destroyed the Montauk Project.
So hold on here. What you're saying is people were playing God.
You could say that, yes.
I mean, if you're able to connect someone to a chair and have them think of something, they and create a living being or create whatever they thought of, that's exactly what it says in the Bible that God did.
Yes, yes, correct. Remember, these scientists were not religious people. They were ultimately from the Nazi regime. Some of them were also from Soviet Union. I remember that. And there were others as well. I remember there were Japanese scientists, Israeli scientists. They were from all over. And their agenda was to see how they could manipulate reality and control humanity so that they could be in power. We were indoctrinated all of the time, and we were told that what we were doing was to help humanity. Because if humans were left alone to decide things for themselves, they would create wars and disasters. That human beings were selfish and could not control their emotions, and that we were helping them to have a better life. That's what we were told.
And other species they look at us, I mean, I guess depending on the frequency of the being, because I know there's all kinds of different beings out there that are on a different vibrational field. Am I right in saying that?
Correct.
They look at people like many of them look at us like we're dogs, correct? Like they look at us like low life forms, pond scum.
There are beings who consider humanity to be like a virus that should be eliminated. There are those who feel we should be in a zoo. There are those who think that humans should be food. And there are those who think humans should be slaves and everything else. And the reason is they claim, not they claim, it's the truth that humanity on this planet is not natural. It's an artificial creation. So that all humans on the earth are a conglomeration of human genetics, reptilian genetics, and others.
Yeah, but some species know that we have really incredible DNA. It's been compromised, it's dormant, and it's been manipulated and tinkered with, right? And that
I've heard we're also looked at as royalty, like our DNA. I've heard that.
It depends on the group.
Well, I know the Greys that do the abductions, they're like the human DNA is very much sought after, correct?
Because remember, there are many different kinds of grays, by the way. There's not just one race. There are many different races. And the one that is the most commonly observed, the 3 to 4 foot tall gray with the big heads and so on, those are a creation. In other words, if you take the image of one of those grays and put it against the image of a human fetus, they're pretty much identical. Because what some of these grays are human fetuses grown to larger proportion and then mind controlled. And that's why they have no digestive system. They don't have
reproductive.
yeah. So that's why they abducted humans because they're trying to upgrade themselves. And that's why they would consider humans to be like royalty because that's what they want to become because they are actually part human.
But we have a soul. This is also an argument that I've heard is that humans actually have a soul that they are trying to attain.
Well, I will tell you, all living creatures have a soul, otherwise it couldn't be animated. Now, there are automatons who have, well, for lack of a better term, AI minds who are created through a digital twin, a DNA digital twin that is manufactured and then controlled and looks like a person, but it isn't.
So not all people on this planet are actually people, correct? I mean, we're looking at, I mean, I've heard, you can ask the chat GPT, right? And it'll say things like only a certain percentage of people are actually real people, and many of them are soulless or actually beings from other planets trying to learn the human experience. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, there is truth to that. Absolutely.
I mean, and like Yeshua or Jesus and just the Guardians and Hyperborea and Lemuria. I mean, there was a time that we were advanced humans, and we can get that back, right, Stewart?
Yes, I just want to clarify something. I think people make a mistake with this, but Lemuria was not human. It was androgynous reptilian. And they were here first before humans, and that's why they consider humans to be the invaders, and that's why they seek to control humans.
But didn't the Anunnaki come in after Maldek, and that's when we were modified?
All of that did happen, but the Anunnaki actually were not completely human either. They came from the Andromeda star system on a vehicle that became known as Nibiru. And so that was sent into our solar system, and it's a 3,600 year cycle, goes in an elliptical orbit around our solar system.
So there's a comet, Three Eye Atlas, that's coming through right now. And I know you guys have heard of this, that many are talking about right now. Many scientists are saying it's an intelligent object coming straight towards Earth. What is this thing? Is it just going to veer off and go somewhere else? Is it a big nothing burger? What do you think it is?
Okay. Our solar system is surrounded by an area called the Kuiper Belt. And around the Kuiper Belt is the Oort cloud. And this is an extension. It's like a field that surrounds our solar system naturally. You remember when they decided that Pluto was no longer
A
a
planet.
planet. It was a Kuiper Belt object. And so Pluto was not in our solar system. It is not a natural object. It is an observatory that was sent in. When a group of civilizations considered the Earth to be a danger, as as we became more advanced and other beings were giving advancement to certain groups on the Earth. And so our solar system basically is surrounded in the Kuiper Belt by a large group of different beings who have different agendas about what to do with the Earth. And as I mentioned, some of them want to annihilate the Earth. Some of them want to make it into a containment field and so on. And there are others who, yes, they want to incorporate the Earth into more of a galactic community. So there's a lot of discussion going on, and these are the beings that are sending these objects into our solar system, both as a warning, as an observatory, and possibly even as a weapon. And this one is not the first one at all. You remember there was one that Umu that came a couple of years ago. And then back in the late 1990s, you remember there was that object that came past the Earth and made a right turn. It was a green glowing object. I remember seeing it in the sky. And it took X-ray.
Was that the Heaven's Gate people? Was that the one where they drank the Kool-Aid?
Correct. That's the one. And that object X-rayed the Earth. It wanted to see what's underground. And then it flew off into deep space.
And so this object that's coming here, not necessarily is because I've often thought, when are they going to play the alien card? The government's going to play the alien card because we know that, in my opinion, Trump's making some big moves right now. And I know the deep state's in trouble. And I would imagine the next big panic move would be the alien card. And I'm wondering if this is all uh, predictive programming or propaganda for that coming event.
There is a dissemination program to slowly allow people to understand that we're not alone. But these objects are not from here. They are coming from the Kuiper Belt.
But they're also going to come here and say that they are our gods, right? And they seeded the planet, lowercase g, gods, correct? I mean, is that going to be the agenda?
Again, there are so many different groups. They each have their own agenda, and they each have their own genetic pool on the Earth that they were responsible for creating. The Germans were created by those beings from Aldebaran who created the Teutonic race and encouraged what became the Nazi groups.
What about the 12-strand DNA and the Guardians and just the Christos Sophia divine blueprint? I mean, that's something that isn't that connected to ascension and just the awakening to that, to remove the frequency fences and seals and
that I just have to say, at the risk of being attacked, all of that is New Age stuff. It's not based in reality. There's no 12 strands. There's no way 12 strands can connect to each other and create something that's viable. DNA, whether you're an elephant, an amoeba, or an alien, is only 2 strands. There can be 12 contributions to the DNA, but there are no 12-strand DNA. And so there's a lot, we have to cipher out the New Age gobbledygook, which was actually created by the government in the 1960s, in order to create a new world religion to support mind control.
right. Just these sources are calling out all those mind control programmings, the New Age programmings, and I get what you're saying. It's just the 12-tree grid and the original planetary grid network and the reversal grid technology to keep us in this lower place. Yeah, because I don't follow New Agey stuff. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Yeah. In fact, can we take this to the back channel now? I think we've done enough for YouTube.
Okay.
Stuart, is there a book you're promoting or anything like that that you want people to know about, or a website?
Well, my website is expansions.com, expansions.com. And on there are all my books, my videos. We have about 1,000 videos over the years. And we do a weekly news video, which I could send to you. I send it to Laura, and she can send to you.
You send it to me. I'm fascinated by this stuff.
All right. Well, I need to get your text.
We want to talk about what's going on currently with the Russia and
let's talk about that. Yes.
Yes. Shall I start with that. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's kind of touchy for YouTube. I'd like to take it to the back channel to talk about that because I'd like to talk about what they did to children and the experiments they did to children underground, and what technology they're using now on humanity to control humanity. And that's kind of too hot for YouTube. Are you guys okay with going back to .tv and doing this?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, Laura, and you guys stay with me. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. See you at Nino's Corner.tv. Thank you.